If you desire to walk in alignment with your purpose, to live a life of joy, abundance, and fulfillment, you've come to the right place. This is Sarah Locke, and welcome to Purpose Unlocked. Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about something that I just learned about recently, and it has been coined executive dysfunction. Paige, have you ever heard of this term? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm, Not exactly. My guess would be the executives of a company, I don't want to say not being aligned together and not managing the company properly.
That would be a much better definition of what it is. That is not what it is, but that, my friend, would make sense. No, what I am referring to is apparently this is like this must be like a Gen Z coined term because the next generation, I feel like they have been coddled so much. Like they are the result of the helicopter parenting generation. So now they have what they have coined executive dysfunction, which basically means that when they get their job for the first time, they have zero prioritization skills. Like if you give them a task, they'll do it, but like that is the extent of them being able to execute things. Like they can't make their own decisions because it stresses them out. And if you give them more than one task, like they can't prioritize. And, if they do a task, they have trouble getting back to the other task, like answering emails in an appropriate timeline and just things like that. So I wanted to talk about that because I do see that as a real problem. Like this is something that I've talked to leaders about, and they're seeing this problem with the next generation. And I want to address the next generation to say that, look, none of us know what we're doing. We're all guessing. And the more you guess, the more you make decisions, the better you get at it. And so we're all having to learn that. So I just wanted to talk about it because it's something that when you start a new job, you're going to be bad at prioritizing and bad at making these decisions. But the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. When you started in corporate, how was how was that for you when you had to prioritize and make decisions?
I'm low man on the totem pole. So it's like you don't make decisions. You're always being told what to do, what you should be doing.
Usually things are pretty much prioritized for you and you know the next thing on your list.
Yes. I mean, now it's starting to get to the point where now I am more experienced. I'm an experienced associate. So even though I'm scheduled on a job this week, let's say, if the job is not done and we are still waiting for things from the client, it is my responsibility to be following up on that. And if anything else does come in, then it's on me to just find the time and work extra to finish whatever is left in the file once we receive what we need and what's outstanding from the client.
So it does sound like you do have enough executive functioning skills to be making those determinations for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important. It's just simply knowing what you have to get done, what the timeline is that's expected of you, and just proceeding. I think for me, when I first started in corporate, I had so many things on my plate that there were certain times where it was really hard to get everything done, like you said. And what I would do is I would generally prioritize in terms of like what came in first. So, what were the requests that I had received first? And then also, who was it making the request? And that has a lot to do with it too. You have to understand the hierarchy of your organization. And I think that's a really good place to start. If you're new at a company, get to know the hierarchy, get to know all of those people's names because that's also going to be a benefit to you to be able to, if you do see that person, say hello by name because they are going to recognize that. So just certain like teeny tiny social skills that you can be developing is knowing the hierarchy, knowing people's names, and then you'll understand, okay, if, you know, top dog is asking for a report of some sort, that thing needs to get done first. So I think, like I said, prioritizing based off of when the request came in and then also based off of the hierarchy of your organization is a really good place to start. The other thing you can do is if you don't know, ask your boss. Say, okay, these are the things that are currently on my list of things to do. Make sure you're recording it somewhere. There is, whether it's Excel or any other task organization program that your company offers, make sure you're writing these things down so that when you check them off and they're complete, make sure you're marking them complete. Make sure that if there is a due date, you're making a note of that so that you can make sure you're getting everything done by the appropriate time. And then it's a great tool for you to use at your midterm and end of year review to say, these are all the things I've been able to accomplish. This is how I've added value to the company this year. And I think that's going to really help you make a case for yourself if you want a raise, if you want to move up, if you want more opportunities and ways to add value. I think that that's a really great way to do it. And then, as I was saying, if you have that list and you have too many things on your to-do list to get done in a reasonable time, make sure you're bringing that to your boss to say, what's the priority? Like, what do you want to make sure that we get done this week? And that can be a weekly conversation that you have, and then you can proceed as such. And if there is something at the bottom of the to-do list and someone gets upset because it doesn't get done, you can then forward that email to your boss or whoever it is making those decisions and say, look, I understand that we talked about this. We said that this wasn't a priority. How do you suggest that I respond? And I think that it makes those difficult conversations a little bit easier because you're not the one that made the decision for that to be lowest priority. That's just how it ended up. And if that person needs additional support, then perhaps they can find it either within your team or elsewhere. Or it might be a case where you can build a case to hire another headcount if need be. But that is how I would go about handling or overcoming executive dysfunction. Because again, we're we're all learning and we understand that this next generation coming into the corporate environment, you're not going to know everything. You're not going to always, when you do have to make your own decisions, you're not always going to make the right ones. You're going to mess up, and that's okay. The world will keep turning. You're not going to die because, you flubbed up an email. Like, it's okay. Finally, I will also admit that there were certain times where I had so many things on my list that there were things that would fall off and just not get done. Do I think that that's the best way to do it? No, but I always got the most important things done. And for some reason, maybe I'm lucky, but it really never came back to bite me in the butt that I didn't get something done. Another thing to remember is that if you've seen someone's email and it's a task that you know that you're not going to get to until the end of the week, don't wait until the end of the week to respond to that person. Say, thank you for your email. I've seen your request. I just want you to know that I'm not going to be able to get to this until Friday or until Monday. If this is a problem, please let me know, or ask, is that a reasonable timeline? Do you need it sooner? If so, then you would include your boss to say maybe they can reprioritize it if there's an issue. But don't leave emails on read and not be getting back to these people until you're able to complete the task, because that is not, I would say there's almost no such thing as over communicating. So communicate as much as you can. And most people don't realize this. I think that that is one of the biggest things that you need to learn when you start your your corporate career or your career journey is communicate as much as humanly possible. If you can't get to something, people are usually going to be very understanding, but you need to communicate. If the deadline comes and goes and you haven't said anything, that's when people get upset.
I can't
But you're,
understand certain things that are expected from higher ups in corporate America.
I think
And
what you're
that is
talking
an issue.
about is a really old school way of leadership. Like, do you still see that in organizations? Yes, you do, but they're generally smaller organizations. A lot of organizations just don't lead that way anymore. Like, they are more inclusive. They do treat everybody with respect. At least that's what I've seen from the larger companies that I've worked for and the better leaders that I've worked for. And even within an organization, you can have some leaders that are that way that expect you to kind of worship the ground that they walk on. And yeah, and it just feels gross. Like working for those types of people is just ugh. So if you find yourself in that situation, it's okay to look elsewhere. Also, I will say I'll play devil's advocate to myself a little bit. Sometimes working for those people, it's not going to be fun, but it does teach you a lot. You'll learn a lot about yourself. You'll get a thicker skin. And sometimes that's needed because sometimes you are going to fail. Sometimes you are going to get told no. You're going to meet conflict and resistance, and there's going to be, you know, that friction. Sometimes that happens. And it's okay. It's okay to work with difficult people. Like it is not going to kill you. Like the world will keep turning. And I think that that's what people get so hung up on is when you do find yourself in those situations, it can be really hard. It can be really frustrating um and it feels like it's never going to end. And it will because there's a season for everything. And you have the autonomy. You can go find a new job. You can even find a new job within the organization. I've known people that have done that. If they really didn't like who they were reporting to, they did find another role within the organization if they still liked the company. But make sure that you take your career in your own hands. But when you're going through the hard times, you're not going to enjoy it, but you will learn a lot from it. And you're going to develop. You're going to develop some thicker skin and some resilience. And I know from experience it has happened to me. I have worked for an awful boss and it's okay. And it also makes you appreciate the really good bosses when you do have them because not everyone is a fantastic leader, but it is nice to work for ones that are. So if you are someone that you feel is struggling with this executive dysfunction, the inability to make decisions or prioritize or even remember everything that's on your task list, I hope that this helps you. Make sure that you are writing down everything that needs to be done. Make sure you're bringing that to your boss to make sure that they know what you're working on as well as the priority that you feel that it should be and be getting their feedback. And finally, communicate, communicate, communicate. Because if you can't get to a task, that is generally okay. Most people are going to understand, but they will understand a lot more if you let them know what you're working on or when they can expect an answer from you so that you're not leaving them hanging. So that would be my advice if this helps you. Please leave a comment and share with someone you love. Thanks. Thank you for the precious gift of your time. If you found this helpful, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share with someone you love. Until next time, count your blessings, love yourself, and stay fabulous.